Hey, praise the Lord, it's Brother Clinton, and welcome to my office once again, as I always say, and I truly mean that. This video is an unlisted video, and you're watching it either because I sent it to you, or because someone that you know sent it to you via the link. The reason that I'm uploading this video as unlisted is because I want this information to be available to those who ask about it, to those who desire to know it, but I don't really want to run a big red flag up the flagpole and put a public announcement all over the internet saying everybody should leave the United States and Europe and come to Costa Rica, and for obvious reasons. So having said that, welcome to this video, welcome to my office. There are those of you who are watching this video who are considering leaving where you are and are considering coming to Costa Rica. And so being a man of God and being someone who has been here for 3 years in Costa Rica, I thought it good to make this video to share with you the things that I've learned while I've been here so that you can use them for your advantage. So, why I left the USA? Basically, I left the USSA because I wanted to live in a free country. Okay, I've known since about 2004 when the Lord revealed to me that in about 10 years it would be time to leave the USSA. For those of you who don't know, I call it the USSA because it is the United Socialist States of America. It is a communist country. Okay, the USSA is a communist country. It is not a republic. It's not a free country. It's a communist country. And I say that as a matter of fact because, you know, those of us who lived in the United States or those of us who live in the United States of America, you have to have permission from the government to do things that you normally should be able to be free to do. You know, like owning land, owning a house, building on your property, creating a business, driving a car, marrying a person. You know, Americans have been taught to pay the government and petition them for a license to do things that they already have the right to do. And now, because those things, you don't have the right to do those things anymore unless you fight the government for them, which is a pretty grievous thing. So because of that, I came to Costa Rica because I wanted to live in a free country. Now, Costa Rica is a country which is owned and run by a central bank, just like every other country, almost every other country in the world. But the oppression is much less noticeable here. Okay, for instance, you know, if you talk to a police officer in Phoenix, Arizona, and you say, "Excuse me, sir, where's the Chase Bank, please?" They'll say, "It's over there." "Where are you going? Got any ID? What's your name?" And they'll try to run your name. Here it's not like that. Okay, if you talk to a police officer here and you say, "Excuse me, sir, where's the Bank of Costa Rica?" "Well, just go over here and make a left and go down 2 blocks and it's right there." "Perfect, thank you very much." "Absolutely, have a nice day." That's your conversation with the police here. If you're not committing a crime here, the police are nothing but servants to you here. They're servants to you. They're like when you used to go into a theater, when theaters would have ushers. You know, the ushers are there to usher you to your seat and everything, be nice to you and stuff like that. That's what the police are here for. You know, unless you're selling dope or killing somebody or robbing people or whatever, the police here are your friends. Okay, I'm not saying they're your friends like you should go and tell them all your life story, but they're your friends in the sense that they're here to help you and then leave you alone. And that's a very nice way to live. It's a very nice way to walk down the street, to know that. So that's why I came to Costa Rica, because I want to live in a free country. And also Costa Rica is a beautiful place. Costa Rica I marvel at it. When I go out for a walk, when I go out for a bike ride, I marvel at the scenery. I mean, I go by the same things all the time, and many times I'll say to the Lord, "Father, this view is even more beautiful than it was yesterday. Thank you, Father. Hallelujah." I mean, the mountains and the clouds on top of the mountains and the banana trees and the palm trees and everything's just green and lush and beautiful, and it's just awesome. It's just awesome. Now, Costa Rica has a lot of poverty, and there's a lot of areas here that are really dirty and run down and stuff. And the neighborhoods here, a lot of them don't look as nice as the neighborhoods in some places in Phoenix, where everything's nicely kept up and painted white and all that stuff. The people live much more humbly here, including yours truly. I don't have a lot of the conveniences here that I had in Phoenix. You know, I don't have wall-to-wall carpeting. I don't have a garbage disposal in the sink. I don't have a dishwasher. I don't have an oven. I don't have a clothes dryer. I don't have a car. But that's okay because, and you know, I can live without those things, and I have everything that I have need of. At the same time, I don't have to go to, you know, Fry's food and drug stores and pay $3 extra for a pound of tomatoes that's supposedly called organic, because I can buy organic fruits and vegetables here all the time at the local market, and that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing. And the meats here are local as well. Now, I don't know what goes on at the chicken place where they raise the chickens. I don't know. You know, I don't know if they use hormones or stuff. They probably do because they, you know, it's the chicken business. But I don't know. But I know that meat here is a lot less venomous than it is in many places, like especially the USSA. And so the food here is a lot healthier. The air here is a lot healthier. I think I've seen 3 chemtrails the whole time that I've been here in Costa Rica. 3. On a slow day in Phoenix, I would see at least 20. So, you know, and I've been here for 3 years. So, having said that, you know, the air's not poison here, the water's not poison here, the food is not poison here. Those are 3 pluses. The scenery is beautiful here. The people are awesome here, although, you know, there's crime here like everywhere else, but not so much as in like Phoenix or Detroit or New York City. But, you know, there is delinquency, there is drugs here. And, you know, the people here live in cages basically. The house that my wife and I live in is surrounded by, you know, metal gates and electric wire. And unfortunately, that's the way we have to be, because at night, you know, a lot of the thuggery is walking up and down the street. But basically, it's a nice, safe area that we live in during the day. We just don't go out at night. You won't walk around in the middle of the night, and we're at home in the middle of the night, which is where we should be. So Costa Rica is a beautiful place. It's a very beautiful place. The thing that has been the hardest for me to get used to here in Costa Rica, the hardest for me to get used to, me personally, is the sound of barking dogs. Because Costa Rica is kind of backwards. It's like, I've said a lot of times, Costa Rica is like the United States 80 years ago. Okay? And the people here in Costa Rica, I knew a man, an American here a while back, who said, you got to be patient with the Costa Ricans because they're only 20 years out of the jungle. Okay, and he said that kind of tongue-in-cheek. But, you know, Costa Ricans are not as civilized as a lot of the rest of the world, and that has its pluses and minuses. Okay? One of the minuses is that Costa Ricans don't really understand that barking dogs make noise, and noise bothers your neighbors. And so Costa Ricans view the sound of a barking dog the same as they view the noise of a bird chirping in a tree. To them, it's just normal. They can be standing on the street, 2 of them talking to one another, with one guy's dog sitting on the sidewalk barking, arr, 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 and they're just talking to one another as if everything was fine and nothing was happening. I have no idea how they can hear one another, but they're doing that. And dogs bark at night here, and you know, I sleep with earplugs. That's the only way that I could ever get any sleep here. I sleep with earplugs every night. I haven't slept one night without earplugs here in 3 years. That's just the way it is, and that's unfortunate. But other than that, Costa Rica is beautiful. It's awesome. I want to talk to you a little about financial things, about earning a living. If you're going to come to Costa Rica, you're going to have to know these things. If you work in a job in the United States that pays like minimum wage or a little more than minimum wage, you're not going to be able to come to Costa Rica and work in a job like that and make enough money to live on. I just want to let you know that. Okay, if you're a waitress, if you're a secretary, if you're a dental assistant, if you're, you know, a security guard, whatever it is that you're working at, where you make like, you know, $10 or $15 an hour, you're not going to be able to come to Costa Rica and work that kind of a job and make enough money to live on. Here, a waitress in a restaurant makes about $15 a day, US dollars. An attendant at a hotel will make about $20 a day. And living here, well, Costa Rica is kind of diverse. I mean, there's expensive places to live here. I mean, if you're rich and if you want to buy a mansion, you can buy a mansion here, and you can spend a lot of money here to live. But me, you know, as a priest, as a man of God, I live frugally, and you know, whereas I live for about $1,000 a month in Phoenix, it costs me about $750 a month to live here. Okay. My wife and I rent a 2-bedroom house. We don't have a car. We don't drink coffee. We don't smoke cigarettes. course, we don't use any kind of drugs. Okay, so that cuts down on our expenses a lot. All those things. Pardon me. Um, but I pay the rent. I pay the electric bill. The electric bill for my house is about $40 to $50 a month. But of course, we don't have a clothes dryer. If we had a clothes dryer, if we had an electric oven, that would be a lot higher. But we don't have any need here in the place where we live for air conditioning or heat, which is a good thing because that's very expensive to run here. Electricity is very expensive here. So if you have to run, air conditioning or heat, or if you have to, run a clothes dryer or things like that, that will run up your electric bill and it's very expensive. But basically all that we use in the house is lights and, the computer, the monitor that I'm using, and the ceiling fan in the bedroom, and not much more than that. So my electric bill is about $50 a month at the most, normally. The rent, my rent is it was $525, it went up, so it's about $600 a month for a 2-bedroom house, and it's a pretty nice size 2-bedroom house. We're very blessed. It's a nice size house that we live in. The bedroom we use as a bedroom. The second bedroom is here, which is the office, and then we have a living room and a dining room and a kitchen and a room in the back that we call the cuarto pila, which is the washroom, where we have the washing machine and the clothesline for drying the clothes, and basically a storage area. So we have that. We don't have a car. Don't need a car. Buses are everywhere here, and I have a bicycle, and I like riding my bicycle. So we live on about $750 a month, give or take 50. We live on about $750 a month. If I was working at a job where I was making $15 a day, 5 days a week, that's what, $75 a week times 4, that's $300 a month. So you can see, that's not enough money to live on. So if you're going to live here in Costa Rica, you either have to have enough money saved to live on for the rest of your life, or you have to have a profession like a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist or an architect or an engineer or something like that. And if you have a profession like that and you come here and you go through the steps with immigration so that you can have permission to work here, then you can earn a living here. Okay? Don't count on a check from the United States government. Even as you shouldn't count on it there in the United Socialist States of America, neither should you count on it here in Costa Rica, because eventually the time is going to come when Social Security is going to write you a letter saying, sorry, we love you and everything, but we don't have any more money to give you. So if you were in the USSA and that happened, that would be a bad thing. But if you were in another country like Costa Rica and that happened, that would be an even worse thing, because here you are in a foreign country with no way to support yourself, with no way to even go out and get a job and earn enough money to support yourself, and you would be without anything, and that would be not a good thing. So don't depend on a check from the US government to live on, okay, if you're coming here to Costa Rica. That's very important. The banking system here is, I think it's quite a bit different than the US, although, I have a checking account in the USSA with Chase Bank, and I've had it since 2004. I don't pay a fee for it unless I, do some things, like unless I don't use my debit card enough, or unless I, do this or that. But basically, as long as I use my debit card 5 or 6 times a month, I don't have any service fee for my checking account. And it was fairly easy to establish my Chase checking account in the time that I did it. Here, if you want to go to a bank and start a checking account, you have to tell them everything. You have to tell them all your personal information. You have to tell them all your financial information. You have to tell them how much money you make. You have to have direct deposit. Just like in Europe when I went to Germany back in 2010. The banks are very controlling here. Okay, so if you come here and you can do without dealing with a bank here, that would be the best way to go. Okay, I do not recommend dealing with banks here. Also, the banks here are, when you go to a bank here, the line is always a mile long, and that's kind of an exaggeration, but there are long lines here, and they're not as polite here as they are in the USSA, because they know that they've got you. Okay, and when you're a bank customer, you're kind of like a slave here. Okay, in Costa Rica, that's kind of how they treat you. So, having said that, and Costa Rica is run by a central bank, just like the USSA. Here's some of the monopoly money. Okay, this is what they call plata, although plata is a word that means silver, a Spanish word that means silver, but it's funny that they use plata when they're talking about paper. They don't even understand that paper is not money. But this is 5,000 colones. Here you can see the word mil. Mil means thousand, okay, in Spanish. So this is 5,000 colones, which is about $9-ish, $9.30 something. This is 2,000 colones, which is about $3.70. And this is 1,000 colones, which is about $1.85, something like that. So that's Costa Rican money, colones. $1, one US dollar will buy you about 575,000 colones right now. No, not 575,000, 575 colones to $1, something like that. What else? Immigration. Immigration is fairly easy to deal with here. In fact, immigration is easier to deal with here than in any other country that I've ever investigated. Because when I was in the U.S., when I was thinking about leaving the U.S., I investigated via the internet many countries, and I didn't find any country that was as easy for me as someone who can pose as a U.S. citizen to come here and live. Costa Rica is the easiest country that I found. So here are two things that I want to share with you. Costa Rica has a policy where if you are a U.S. citizen or a Canadian citizen and you come to Costa Rica, you have an automatic 90-day visa. Okay, you don't have to pay for a visa, you don't have to apply for a visa. Just because you show them your U.S. or Canadian passport, you automatically have a 90-day visa when you come here. When you come here to Costa Rica, you have to, please know this, you have to have a round-trip ticket. Okay, because when you come here to Costa Rica, you have an automatic 90-day visa, but you also have to have proof to show at immigration that you are leaving the country within 90 days. Otherwise, you can't come. Okay, you can't come here with a one-way ticket. I found that out the hard way, and God blessed me at the airport with a man who actually went online for me and purchased for me a round-trip ticket and then canceled it so I didn't have to pay for it, but just, you know, so I could have the printout to show at immigration. But when you come to Costa Rica, you have to, if you're a U.S. or Canadian citizen, you have to have a paper that says that you have a reservation on an airline that you're leaving within 90 days. If you don't have that, you can't come into Costa Rica. But when you come here, they stamp your passport with a 90-day visa. Okay, so what that means is that before 90 days is up, you have to leave the country. So you can take, you know, you're in the area where I am, near San Jose. I'm like a 15-minute bus ride from San Jose. So this is what I used to do for the first couple of years that I lived here. I just would take a bus to San Jose, and then in San Jose I would take a bus to the border at Nicaragua, cross the border, you know, stay there for 3 days, because you're supposed to leave the country for 72 hours and then you can come back. Although a lot of people just cross the border for a couple hours and hang out at a restaurant and then come back. I've heard people say that they do that. I've never done that. But, you know, all you have to do is just leave the country every 90 days, stay out of the country for 72 hours, and then come back. So that's what I used to do, just go to Nicaragua for 3 days, rent a hotel there, a hotel room. The whole trip cost me, like, before I met my wife, it was like $200 for a 3-day trip, including bus, hotel, food, and everything. So I used to do that every 3 months, and as long as you keep doing that, you can just stay here however long you want. However, I heard rumors that that particular law was going to be done away soon, that Costa Rica was talking about doing it away, which, if you know anything about Costa Rica, that means that they'll probably get around to it in about 70 years. But you never know. And so for that reason, I prayed about it and I began to seek out other ways to become a resident. And I didn't find any feasible option on my own, but it came to pass that God provided a way, because later on when I met my wife, she found a flyer at the immigration place and with a lawyer's phone number on it. And one day I forget the circumstances, but we wound up calling that lawyer. And it turns out this man is a Christian. And I know, you're like, what? A Christian lawyer? Yes, I found out that there is such a thing, and I never would have thought that there was. But his name is Vladimir, and he's a very nice man. And he loves the Lord Jesus Christ with his wife. And he filed the proper paperwork for me to, it's called a work permit, but it's also the same thing or on the same level as residency. And he filed it for me at immigration for $400. So I gave him $400. Actually, a brother in Christ flew down here, and he, by the grace of God, he paid that fee for me. Thank you, brother. You know who you are. May God bless you. So for $400, you can pay this particular man and this lawyer, and he will file the paperwork at immigration. You also have to provide the proper paperwork, like you have to have a letter of clearance from your area, which is a letter from the police department that says that you don't have any criminal history. You have to have a set of fingerprints to submit to the government of Costa Rica. Oh yes, you have to become a slave to this country just like you become a slave to the USSA. But it's much more lenient here. What else did I have to provide? Letter of clearance, fingerprints, birth certificate, and the birth certificate has to have been ordered within the last 6 months. I don't know why, but it has to be within the last 6 months. And I think that's it. If you have any questions about that, write to me, and if there's anything that I've forgotten, then I'll make sure to mention that to you. But those are the things that we needed to present. And then he brought those things to immigration and filed the case, and now I have what is called a case number. My case is pending with immigration. It's been pending for about a year, and the Costa Rican government takes a long time to do things, but that's fine. I'm not worried about it, because when the resolution actually comes, then I'm going to have to start paying my slave tax, which is health insurance here. And yes, health insurance is mandatory here, but it costs about $29 a month here. And it's not that I want health insurance. I don't want health insurance, but it's something that I have to pay in order to live here legally. So that's why I call it a slave tax, and it's very cheap. And in the event that I did have an accident or something and injured myself and needed stitches or first aid or something like that, I would be able to go to a hospital and it would all be paid for. All of it, 100%. No co-payments, no deductibles. So, that is one thing on the plus side. So immigration is very easy here. Okay, if you're a U.S. citizen or a Canadian citizen, and I think that this applies to the Schengen states of Europe too, but don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. One thing about people here in Costa Rica is they have a really annoying habit of speaking Spanish all the time. So if you come here to Costa Rica, you're going to have to learn how to speak Spanish. Now, if you're really rich and you can afford to live, where all the Caucasian North Americans live, and all the expats, the expat community, and you can live and go to the store and everything and speak English to everybody, then that's wonderful. But if you're not among the rich and famous, then if you come here to Costa Rica, you're going to need to learn Spanish. Pardon me. Having said that, what are the pros and cons about being here in Costa Rica? Well, the pros, of course, are, like I mentioned earlier, the food is not poison here, the water is not poison, the air is not poison. You can go to the local market here and you can buy fresh fruits and vegetables that are grown locally for good prices. I mean, for cheap prices, normally. Sometimes some particular things get expensive if they get out of season, but, we're talking like fresh tomatoes, cucumbers, radishes, lettuce, papayas, mangoes, apples, pineapples, just a myriad of fruits and vegetables. And there's a particular market that I found recently where I can buy oranges imported from California, because Costa Rica doesn't have good oranges. And I found oranges imported from California. And they were at an excellent price. They were basically 1,500 colones per kilo, which boils down to about $1.20 a pound, which is awesome. And when you come here to Costa Rica, come to my house. I'll be happy to take you to that market. And the pros here are awesome. The food here is much more organic, much more clean, much more free from chemicals and poisons and GMOs. There are no chemtrails here. I've seen 3 chemtrails here in 3 years. Okay, on a slow day in Phoenix, I saw 10. On a slow day in Phoenix, I saw 10 chemtrails. But here in 3 years, I've seen 3. So, the water here is drinkable. We drink the water out of the faucet here. In Phoenix, I could never do that. I wouldn't even give tap water to my cat in Phoenix. It was bad enough that I had to bathe in it. I certainly wouldn't ever drink it. But here, we drink the tap water. That's wonderful. It has a little chlorine in it, you know, because it's city water and it's cleansed with chlorine, treated with chlorine. Pardon me. But the water is clean here. The food is clean here. The air is clean here. The landscape is beautiful here. The people are really nice here for the most part. You know, there's good and bad people everywhere. It's a much more laid back, slow, relaxed lifestyle here. Okay, people are not in so much of a hurry here, which can be good and bad. If you're trying to get somebody to do something for you, it can be bad because people tend to be kind of irresponsible, and the work ethic here is much less than, you know, in the United States. But at the same time, it's just a very relaxed kind of environment here, much more so than in the USSA. The negatives about Costa Rica: you're not going to live quite as luxurious, unless you're, of course, filthy rich. Pardon me, I shouldn't say filthy rich. I should say unless you are exceeding wealthy in this life, you're not going to live as luxuriously here in Costa Rica as you are in the United States. Like I believe I mentioned earlier in this video, you know, I live in a place where air conditioning and heat is not necessary, and that's a wonderful thing because if I did have to have it, it would be very expensive. I don't have a clothes dryer because it would be very expensive to run. I don't have an oven because it would be very expensive to use. To give you an example, as I told you before, my utility bill is about $40 to $50 a month here. I rented a house a while back where I had an electric oven, and my utility bill was about 3 times what it is here. And the difference was because of the electric oven. Just using an electric oven once a day or once every other day. So it's very expensive. Electricity is very expensive here. What else? I don't have wall-to-wall carpeting here. Okay, you're not going to have wall-to-wall carpeting here. It's too humid, and nobody here. There's no such thing as wall-to-wall carpeting here. Dogs barking. People constantly speaking Spanish. You know, Costa Rica is a Catholic nation, so just about everybody here is Catholic. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're not nice people. It just means that they're confused about who God is and the way of salvation. What else? You know, Costa Rica has its problems just like every other country, but it's a beautiful place. It's a really beautiful place, and that's why, you know, I've been here for 3 years, and I have no intention of leaving. I certainly have no intention of going back to the USSA, not even for a vacation. I wouldn't even want to step 1 foot on the ground there because, you know, God forbid that, you know, I should want to leave and somebody in TSA should, you know, be having a bad day and all of a sudden say that I can't leave the country for, you know, no reason. And they can do that. They don't have to have a reason. They're federal agents. They can't be tried in a state court, and they're untouchable, and they can, you know, at a whim, they can just tell you that you can't leave. And so that's the reason, well, basically the reason why I would never go back to the USSA is because the Lord Jesus Christ has forbidden me to return. But even if He bade me okay to go, I don't think that I would want to, because I would be afraid that, you know, I wouldn't be able to leave again. So, pardon me, having said that, and the reason that I'm coughing is because a few weeks ago, there's been a virus going around here like crazy. Just about everybody in the neighborhood has had it, and a few weeks ago my wife got it, and she had it for about a week, and then it spread to me. And thank God I'm not sick anymore, although I was pretty sick for several days. But there's been kind of like a nagging cough, like a tickle in my throat that has still continued to molest me a little bit from time to time, but it's much less than it was, thank God. So anyway, having said that, Costa Rica is a wonderful place to be. If you want to come here, it's a great place to be, but you need to know how to support yourself here. You need to know the things about immigration and the banking system that I've shown you. You need to understand Spanish if you're going to come here. Okay, you need to understand how to speak Spanish and be willing to learn Spanish. You need to be willing to learn to be patient with people if you want something done, because people do things here very slowly, especially the government. If you come here, you will learn very quickly that products are very expensive here and services are very cheap here. Okay, because there's not a lot of manufacturing here in Costa Rica, so most of the products that come here either from China or from the United States, and the products that come here from China are really low quality and very cheap. And the products that come from the United States are better quality, and they're very, very expensive because there's a high tax on importing anything from the United States here into Costa Rica. Also, if you come to Costa Rica, bring whatever electronics you will need. Okay, buy them in the United States and bring them here, because electronics are very expensive here. And if you come here and you want to buy something online from the US, like a laptop, you know, a $600 laptop will cost you an additional $300 in duty fees to bring it or to have it sent to Costa Rica. So whether it be a laptop, a telephone, an iPad, whatever it may be, electronics, if you desire to have electronics here, buy them in the US and bring them here. Because if you try to buy them here, they're going to cost you 2 or 3 times what it would cost to buy them in the US. But services are very cheap here, because the labor is very cheap here. In Phoenix, when I went to the barber shop, it cost me $16 or $17 to get my hair cut. Here, it cost me the equivalent of about $3 for a haircut. You know, and I leave a $1 tip, so that's, you know, $4 for a haircut, and it's a good haircut. And you know, the people here work for very cheap, and they also tend to be kind of lazy about the way they do things, because you know that's how it is here. So products here tend to be very expensive. Services here, labor here is very cheap. And other than that, I think I've pretty much covered it all. So if you'd like to, you know, leave the USSA and come to Costa Rica, and if you're understanding the terms that the things that I've set forth before you, and that sounds like it's a doable plan for you, then pray to the Lord about it. And you know, if you have peace from God about it, then by all means, come. Okay, there's never been a better time to leave the United Socialist States of America than now, in my personal opinion. So if you have the ability to get out and stay out, now's the time. So I hope this message is a blessing to you. I've been speaking for a little over a half an hour now, so I'm going to shut up. If you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in the comment forum, or you're welcome to also write me an email. And so here I am. I'm at your service. This is Brother Clinton. I'm out for now. Peace to you in Jesus' name.